So let's say all the knowledge about esotericism is wiped from your brain and you have to start over. What pathway would you suggest for people and for yourself then in that situation to get into this esoteric tradition?
A really good question. Where to begin? There's a few great, introductions. Jocelyn Godwin wrote a very approachable book called The Golden Thread, which I think the subtitle is like The Timeless Wisdom of Antiquity. And that's a short book, and there's chapters dedicated to all these, Prisca Theologia traditions. And that's a popular one. That's a great one. If you want to read further and read some more primary stuff, I would recommend reading the Rosicrucian Manifestos, the Fama Fraternitatis, Confessio Fraternitatis, and the Chemical Wedding, or just read the Chemical Wedding. That's also quite approachable. Other introductory material. There's a ton of free content on YouTube. I mean, geez, you can listen to so much good stuff. Robert Gilbert is a very important recent popularizer of Rosicrucianism. From a more sort of, he's quite a rigorous historian, but also appreciates a lot of the things, in his own way. There's lectures that we offer here at the Embassy of the Free Mind that people can watch online from home, and those are often quite introductory level and historical. We're not trying to convert you to any particular movement. No. We're just, trying to be a platform for ideas. There's so much, and yeah, without, coming off as too biased, I would say, yeah, the Jocelyn Godwin book is a good introductory one. If people are more interested into modern movements, Henrik Bogdan wrote a book called Rituals of Initiation and Western Esotericism. Antoine Favre, actually, that's another good one that we have here. This is Access to Western Esotericism, which is another,
sounds like a good start
volume, and it goes over the commonalities shared by all the traditions, like living nature and correspondence.
That's actually something I wanted to ask you about. Is there any, in all the research that you've done, is there any threads you can see throughout traditions, religions, that comes back a lot?
Definitely. Now, as a historian, it's all sort of, you have to be careful because, just because, for example, I'm not saying this is what they said, but if Plato says the same thing as, Alfred North Whitehead, or, this may be not a good example, but if Plato said the same thing as, like, Confucius, that doesn't mean one was a student of the other. You can come to the same conclusion, without being historically connected. And some would say that's the perennial philosophy shining through, coming to the same conclusion. And so, for example, this golden rule idea, treat others as you would like to be treated, that was also saying it Confucius, it was not just unique to the Western canon, and so there are certain things that do recur. This idea that the whole goal of mysticism is, the dissolving of the object and subject, That's very simply put. It's like the EMC squared of the history of mysticism. It's like, that's what a lot of mystics are after, and they may use different language to describe it, but phenomenologically, they're after the oneness, the monistic all is one experience. So you don't have to know a lot. You don't have to read a lot to come to these conclusions. You don't have to be educated at all, and that's something I think a lot of people in the field of, esotericism are too lost in the most recent sort of theoretical, approach, or, they lose the forest for the trees, and it's like, we're supposed to be humanists, we're supposed to be like, communicators of, these ideas, not just sitting in an ivory tower talking to 10 people that can understand you, so I'm trying to, and I'm very much a student, my advisor, Peter Forshaw, who's brilliant at this. I'm trying to write and speak, maybe I hope it's coming across that way, in a way that anybody could appreciate, not just someone that's like a student of, one of these traditions, but, people have different approaches. Yeah.
Is there maybe it's probably a very difficult question, but is there a favorite book in the collection of yours?
Zanoni is great. Zanoni is underappreciated. Edward Bulwer-Lytton's masterpiece, I would say, 19th century. This is on archive.org. You can access it online. It's a narrative, fiction narrative. It's a novel, and really deep insights. Zanoni's great. That's pretty long. If you want just a sort of a short, confusing entrance, in a proper initiation, baptism by fire style, read The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz.
Mm-hmm.
That's a puzzling document. 17th century, it's like 1610 or so, it was composed. And strangely enough, Carl Jung begins his final Mysterium Conjunctionis, which is all about alchemy and psychology. He begins that book with a discussion of The Chemical Wedding. And that I was like, how does this influence the history of psychoanalysis?
Everything's connected.
So yeah, exactly. So The Chemical Wedding, that's another fun thing that and it's another book I really love, influenced me a lot. And then actually this book Herbert Silber wrote called Problems of Mysticism and its Symbolism. That's another.